I serve as the Vice Chair of the Armenian Caucus, and today we pay our respects to those whose lives were lost 111 years ago, when 1.5 million innocent souls were murdered by the Ottoman Empire beginning in April of 1915. The Ottoman authorities, supported by auxiliary troops and even at times civilians, perpetrated massacres, death marches without adequate food or clothing across the desert under lethal sun and freezing cold nights. That was the genocide that began in 1915, involving the annihilation of the Ottoman and Armenian community and so many Greek, Assyrian, and other Christian communities. In addition, tens of thousands of Armenian children were forcibly removed from their families, converted to Islam, and told that they were Turks. Now, genocide denial has to be fought, because genocide denial is the last step of a genocide. First, a people is obliterated, and then they obliterate the memory of the obliteration. But also because genocide denial is the first step in the next genocide. And that's why Hitler was able to turn to those around them and say that they would be able to get away with the Holocaust by saying, "Who today remembers the Armenians?" Today we remember the Armenians. This century of denial by the Turkish government is not only an insult to Armenians around the world, it is a stumbling block to Turkey ever being a valued ally and a fellow democracy. Where would American-German relations be today if in Berlin they were denying the Holocaust? We have a vibrant relationship with a democratic Germany that came to terms with its history. Over my last 30 years in Congress, I have fought beside so many of you. First and foremost, we fought for decades to have Congress recognize the genocide, and it looked bleak year after year. And then we got it through the committee, but didn't get it on the floor. Not with the Speaker, who brought it to the floor. And this should inspire us that no matter how bleak the situation is, we could be just months away from victory. Now, we are looking at a backsliding, unfortunately, from the Trump administration. The President's April 2025 statement failed to use the term genocide. And I called out Vice President J.D. Vance when he outrageously deleted a post recognizing the Armenian genocide and called the post an error. No, the error was the deletion. But these are modern times, and we have seen 120,000 Armenians and more ethnically cleansed from Artsakh, a land that had been Armenian for thousands of years. We remember the pogroms of 1998 and 1990 in Baku and Surgate, and we see the continuing exclusion of the refugees of Artsakh who are not allowed to return to their homes. We see the prisoners of war. Peace has been achieved, but the prisoners of war are still incarcerated. That is why we need to enforce Section 907 of the Freedom Support Act, demand the release of the Armenian POWs, and impose global Magnitsky sanctions against the Azeri officials responsible for war crimes and grave human rights abuses. We can't just focus on justice for the past. We have to protect the Armenia of the future. That is why in December, so many of us joined with, of course, Frank Pallone and Gus Bilirakis, the chairs of the Armenian Caucus, to introduce the Armenian Security Partnership Act to strengthen Armenia's deterrence, because make no mistake about it, what Azerbaijan did to Artsakh, they would do to Armenia if Armenia was defenseless. Only strengthening Armenia, as we should have done with Ukraine, can prevent the next war of acquisition and conquest. So we need to pass the Armenia Security Partnership Act, and people ask, how are we going to pay for it? I've got one way: let's end all aid to Azerbaijan. Nearly all of the survivors of the Armenian genocide have passed away. So it's up to us, you and me, to keep their legacy alive, to fight for justice and to fight for security for Armenia's future. And I will be with you, as we will all be with you, every step of the way. I'm Congressman Brad Sherman.